Well, hello, dear prayer partners and friends. I'm Pastor Wolfgang, and as always, I'm coming to you from Christ the King Lutheran Church in Cary, North Carolina. I haven't talked to you for a while, and thought it was kind of time for a sort of a video update about what's going on here at Christ the King at CTK. We've had a really busy summer, although it was very, very different. We are used to having a big vacation Bible school that runs over a whole weekend with hundreds of people and lots of activity. And of course, with the pandemic going on, that whole program, VBS, had to travel online. And that's what we did. We had a 4-week program with programming every Sunday during the Sunday school hour for the kids, and then there was a Zoom class for kids on Wednesday evenings, and there was we called it Wine and Word, exciting series of discussions for adults on Wednesday night. So it's been really good, and I think we made that switch, that pivot from in-person to online quite well, and we were very pleased with the kind of participation that we got and the responses that we got and the feedback that we got from people who really enjoyed themselves. We did manage to find a few occasions where we gathered in person in small groups with appropriate distancing and masks on and all that kind of thing. For example, we had a chalk day where we invited families to come in and take one of our parking spaces and do some chalk drawings and have a positive message. And that was really well received, and a whole number of our families came. Maybe you saw the pictures on Facebook. A whole number of families came and did that and had a great time. And of course, we're very glad to see each other, even though we couldn't hug and we could only talk to each other from 6 feet away. I suppose that is that new normal that people have been talking about. Now we are gearing up for the fall, and again, it will be a very internet-based program. Of course, we continue to live stream our worship services, traditional and contemporary, 2 of them every Sunday morning on YouTube. Right now on Wednesday evenings, we are doing what we call pop-up worship, which is small groups of people, again distanced with mask, in our parking lot outdoors, worshiping together, and that's going on during the month of August. And then in September, of course, we're going to get ready for Rally Day. And listen to this. This is so exciting and so creative. I mean, Rally Day, right, the beginning of Sunday school and of fall programming, second Sunday in September 13 this year. We're used to having hundreds of people, and there's a big picnic and a big lunch and all that, and lots of folks and lots of activity. And of course, none of that's going to happen this way. But we came up with a way to have an exciting Rally Day. And that is, we are going to have a drive-through circus. So people will be invited during the Sunday school hour, in between the 2 live stream worship services at 10 a.m. People will be invited to come and kind of wind their way through our parking lot. And there will be certain stations or acts where you can stop and watch something or participate in something. One of those stations is going to be a noisy offering where the kids get to drop their change into a basket, and then it'll roll down the hill and make a lot of noise. And that noisy offering, by the way, is designated for Rise Against Hunger, which is a food packing program out of Raleigh that we've participated in every year, and I'll say more about that in a minute. The last one of these stations will be where you get a to-go box with our barbecue from Chef Chris. That's the other big thing about Rally Day. He always makes some barbecue. Some years he's had whole hogs and all that. And this year it's going to be like curbside service to go, and you can take your box and have a family picnic on the lawn here at church, or you can take it home, or however you want to eat it. So that's the plans for Rally Day. And then the following week, September 20th, I begin a 4-week sermon series. The theme is For Such a Time Like This. And it's going to be a series on mission and how the very reason for the church to exist is to be outward oriented, not to be focused back on itself. and to be about mission, about proclaiming the good news of God's unconditional love in Jesus Christ. And that sermon series will then lead up to our celebration weekend, which is always in the middle of October. This year that falls on October 17 and 18. And that's the time when we ask our members to make a pledge of their giving for the following year. And that will happen on October 18, Consecration Sunday. Our guest preacher, very excited about that, is Phil Hirsch, the head of domestic mission for the ELCA in Chicago, good friend of mine from way back. He'll be preaching via video. He can't come as we had planned, but via video he'll be with us that morning. And of course we'll do the pledging and also receive new members and do other exciting things. The day before, here I'm going back to Rise Against Hunger now. The day before, on Saturday, October 17th, we're going to send perhaps 2 or 3 shifts of volunteers to the warehouse of Rise Against Hunger in Raleigh. They've been able to set it up so you can be distanced and masked, and you can do the food packing there that we couldn't do in our own building like we did in the past. And so that's going to be our service project that goes along with our pledging for next year. Every year we find something to support that's outside of us. So even while we're asking for support for the congregation internally, we also want to emphasize again that mission is about serving those outside of us. And so this will be our service project. And I'm so excited about that because we've been doing that for a number of years. In fact, the very first time I came to visit with this congregation before I was even called, this was would have been in September of 2016, my family and I came on that Sunday, Rally Day, when we did that packing. So that was one of the very first activities, and there was 200 people crowded together in a very small room, packing 15,000 meals that were then shipped all over the world to combat global hunger. So we found a way to do that again, and I know our folks will be very delighted to be able to do that at the warehouse, because that was a very popular project that so many people were involved with. And it's a lot of fun, right? You bring the kids and you spend a couple hours filling bags up with the rice and these other ingredients that go in there, and sealing them and packing them and getting them ready for shipment. One other piece, during the 4 weeks of the sermon series on mission, I'm so happy to announce this. We are going to have Wednesday evening Zoom discussions with Pastor Steve Bowman. Steve is also an old friend. He used to be a pastor in New Jersey. I knew him back then. And then he became bishop of the Lutheran Church in New York City. And then for, I guess, 12 years, he was the domestic missions director for the ELC in Chicago, preceding Phil Hirsch. And he will be with us live on Zoom on 4 Wednesday evenings, starting September 23, to discuss his book, The Mission Table. And that's the book we are using for the sermon series as a kind of a text, if you want, to kind of go along. And so each Sunday we'll talk about some of what's in the book and some other stuff that I'm going to add on to it. I'm the preacher. But then on Wednesday nights we get to really dig into it and ask questions and, discuss what Steve has written with the author of the book. So I'm really excited that that's working out. So you can see we haven't slowed down a bit in this pandemic, even though the building, only has very small group meetings. Groups under 10 can meet, even though it's very empty and often very lonely. I'm going to be honest, very lonely here. The church has not slowed down one bit. If anything, we have sped up. So if anybody tells you that the church is closed, tell them that is not true. The church is never closed because God is never closed. And God's love and grace and mercy and guidance and blessing is with us every day. And if anything, in the midst of trouble, in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of racial unrest, in the midst of a contentious election season, we even had a hurricane and we had an earthquake here in North Carolina, as though 2020 couldn't get any worse. But in the midst of all of that, God is especially with us. And it is especially helpful to think of God's presence and God's blessings right now when we need it the most. when we know that God hasn't abandoned us, but God is with us always. So I pray for you, as I hope you'll pray for me. May God bless you always, and we'll see you next time. God bless you. Bye-bye.